Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. I'm back from my vacation, holiday, whatever you want to call it, and I am back with the daily content. Now, I played a few games yesterday on stream for patch 2.4a, and I played a few games here and there last week. Since the release of obviously patch 2.4a. Last week was a bit of a crazy week. I was able to kind of, well, not predict, but kind of know what the changes were. Obviously, they went live one day earlier, and I did a whole Twitter post about, you know, all the changes. I was comparing stats and everything, so that was all a bit of fun. Unfortunately, I couldn't do a patch rundown for you all, but I thought I'd do a tier list to kind of give my thoughts about obviously the changes and how it's affected in terms of the bot lane. Now, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below your thoughts as well. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit croaky. I have kind of lost my voice a little bit, but we're still here. We're ready to go. And the first big change is with the AD carries and with this unbelievable champion. This monstrosity of a champion. I mean, I don't even know what words I even have to describe this champion anymore, which is Kai'Sa. This champion somehow just never gets touched every single patch, and patch after patch she just keeps performing better and better and better. Now obviously with Lucian being added, with all the crit items being added as well, Lucian, Xayah and Corki did obviously move up a tier, but now obviously some of the items have been nerfed, and obviously some of the champions have also been nerfed as well. I feel like Kai'Sa is again at just the sole top point. You can argue that maybe Ezreal is probably in between the two. You could probably say that he's like S+, or maybe Kai'Sa is S++ tier. Honestly, Kai'Sa just really, really strong. Obviously, the only change that happened with Kai'Sa was with the Solari Charge Blade. It got kind of a little bit of a nerf in terms of how much it costs now. But still, you can get your Q upgrade really quickly. You can get your E upgrade really quickly as well. And you just do a lot of damage, which is absolutely disgusting. And just your self-peel and being able to either ultimate forward towards the back line, or being able to peel back for yourself as well to gain the shields, to flash, to dash, turn invisible, is just a great solo queue champion overall. Now, speaking of Ezreal, now obviously Ezreal hasn't really been changed much. Obviously in patch 2.4, when they added the new crit and AD items, they added Sorela's Grudge, which has been a really, really good addition for Ezreal and has been really, really nice for him. He is still a great champion, a very safe champion to play. Like I said before, multiple times, is that Ezreal is, I still feel like, is still quite hard to carry with in terms of solo queue. He doesn't really, he's not like a Kai'Sa or a Xayah or even a Lucian, when sometimes you could just auto attack and that'll be enough. With Ezreal, you can't do that. With Ezreal, you have to land your skill shots, and that is the most important thing with Ezreal. So sometimes it can be a little bit, you know, difficult, but obviously he's still a great champion. He's still really fun to play. He's still really, really strong as well. Like I said, if there was like an S++ tier, I'd probably get Kai'Sa there, and I'll put Ezreal just above, or just below Kai'Sa in S+, and then have the rest of these three champions, which we'll talk about now. Obviously, Lucian, Xayah, and Corki both benefited a lot from all these new crit items. Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade as well. Obviously, with the Navori Quick Blade, some of these champions use them as well. And obviously, with the IE fitted in there as well. And obviously, a few nerfs came in patch 2.4a, sorry. Essence Reaver now costs more. Solari Charge Blade now costs more as well. Lucian also got a nerf himself, and Corki got a nerf as well. So that's why I feel like they've just dropped down a little bit. They're not as strong as Kai'Sa now. I feel like it is very hard. You know, I honestly, there could be some situations where, you know, Kai'Sa is maybe on par, or maybe even sometimes below, you know, Lucian, Xayah, Corki, etc. But like I said, with all the recent changes to the champions and to the item changes, I feel like they're just below Kai'Sa, but I say just below it. It's really, really hard to kind of judge this tier list at the moment, because so many champions can work, which is obviously what the great thing is about obviously all the items that got added to the game and all the changes that happened as well, is that you can carry now with so many AD carries. Obviously, in my opinion, it's still the hardest role to carry with. You still got a lot of situations where you're just going to get dove and you're just going to die all the time, or your support might not be there to help you. That's why I say that it's probably the hardest role to carry in solo queue. But in my opinion, it's still there. You can still do a lot of damage. Obviously, if you get ahead as well, you can still make a lot of outplays with these champions. Yeah, not really much to say individually. Obviously, Lucian's still really, really strong. It can still be played in mid lane as well. Still really strong with the crit build. Xayah as well. Obviously, all our feathers is still really, really strong. Xayah herself didn't get changed, but obviously the items got a little bit changed. So we'll have to test out a few things on her. It might be a case where you might even go like Infinity Edge into Navori Quick Blades now and maybe completely ignore the Essence Reaver because it costs a little bit more. But I still feel like you build Slurry Charge Blade pretty much all the time because the item, in my opinion, is still really, really good. It only got nerfed by, I think, like 100 gold or something like that, or maybe it might be 200. I can't remember the numbers exactly. But yet again, the nerf is a bit, but it doesn't obviously affect her too much. And the same with Corki as well. Still really, really strong. His Valkyrie got nerfed, but honestly, it's still completely fine. You can still do a lot of damage with Corki. Great scaling champion and is really, really strong. Now, moving on to A. Now, these first two champions, Draven and Vayne, honestly can both live up here as well. And it's the only reason why I put them down in A and not S is because of how difficult they are to play. You need the right person to play these champions, especially Draven. Obviously, Draven is really hard to play. I get memed all the time, but I am really, really bad with Draven. His mechanics are just not for me. I don't really like his kind of, I guess you could say, aggressive play style in laning phase, and obviously being able to try to misposition sometimes because of your axes. And obviously, if you don't catch your axes, you lose out on a lot of DPS. So Draven, really, really hard champion to play. Obviously, when put in the right hands, can probably be S, maybe even S plus tier, if I'm totally honest with you. Same with Vayne as well. And obviously, Vayne, the Slurry Charge Blade got a little bit of a nerf, but Vayne is still really, really strong at the moment with all the supports building like Stuff for Flowing Water, Ardent Sensor, all these enchanter supports that are really good for peeling. And obviously, when Vayne gets a few items, like 3 or 4 items, she can pretty much kind of solo carry the game. But it's getting to that point, which is the hard part, because in the early game she does suffer, she does kind of struggle a lot in terms of the laning phase, being able to farm up because of her low range. And it's kind of the same with Kai'Sa as well, is that if you want to, beat Kai'Sa, you have to punish her in the laning phase. It's kind of the same with Vayne as well. But again, in the right hands, and if you do survive early game, S, even S plus tier as well. Varus is still really, really strong. He is still a great champion to play. Obviously, Poke Varus is still the best way to go. You go for the Manamune into Ghostblade, into Sorela's Grudge. You do a lot of damage. You have the slows as well. Again, the only reason why Varus is not as strong as what he is because of all these new crit items. And the crit items are really, really strong at the moment. So yeah, unfortunately, Varus is just below S tier. But again, when put in the right hands, can probably be really, really good. Tristana kind of doesn't really benefit from any of the new crit items that obviously got added in 2.4. Nothing's really changed with her, so she's kind of in the same place in A tier. Again, quite a difficult champion to play because you have to make sure you auto-attack who you put your bomb on, and obviously make sure you know when to jump in or jump out, get them resets, etc, etc. Still quite a fun champion to play, but it's still quite hard. And Jinx as well. Obviously, Jinx is very beginner friendly, very, very easy to play. If you do pair Jinx with a Lulu, with a Janna, with a Nami, anything like that, you can still be really, really strong. The only problem with Jinx is that obviously she doesn't have any mobility. She is very, very hard to kind of carry with at times because of her, no mobility. But if you do have a Lulu or a Nami or a Janna there to kind of help you out, it does all work good. Sorry, taking a bit of a drink because my throat is still, my voice is still going, as you can probably tell. Honestly, again, when paired with, Nami, Janna, Lulu, anyone like that, again, she could probably move into S or S plus tier. So, again, like, all these champions above A are all very, very good and can all carry games, in my opinion. Like, you can honestly pick any one of these champions. Obviously, bearing in mind that you know how to play them, you know how to carry with them, and you can carry games. There's no matter of doubt. Obviously, below that, Jhin, Senna, both not very good. if you play fasting Senna now, if you play duo bot lane, if you play fasting Senna, there has been a kind of a rise of, oh god, he's gonna hate me for this. Komoto slash Polish Onion for people who don't know him. He was telling me to play Senna Nasus bot lane. And I was like, this is the biggest troll thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And now suddenly, people are playing Senna Nasus bot lane, and it's actually working in competitive play. I still don't think it's as good as what people think it is. But that's the power of kind of fasting Senna, is that she doesn't actually need to farm, and she can have a tank bot lane to kind of, you know, deal the damage. Galio could be really good. Sometimes Garen could even work, Singed, maybe even like a Darius or even a Camille. Anyone that could kind of, you know, protect Senna, but at the same time do a lot of damage as well. Because obviously, Senna's main point when you play fasting Senna is by obviously collecting souls, which is your main purpose. And then obviously you don't want to take any farm, because if you take farm, you have less percentage of a chance to get the souls. And obviously, as you scale up into mid and late game, you have a lot of souls, you'll have a lot of items, and she'll be really, really strong. But this Senna is classic AD Senna. Now, obviously, classic AD Senna is not as good as fasting Senna. If it was fasting Senna, I would probably move her up into the A tier with all the other champion stacks. But this is just classic AD Senna. And again, Jhin as well. Jhin is just not that great, unfortunately. I feel like he needs a buff. My precious boy Jhin does need a little bit of love, but unfortunately, no love today for Jhin. And then we got Ash and Misfortune at bottom, which, again, they haven't really been changed as much. They haven't really been buffed or anything like that, so nothing really going there for any of these two champions. I tried my hardest to make Misfortune work, but because this meta is so like dive heavy and team fight heavy, it's really hard for Misfortune to do anything. You can play aggressive in the laning phase, and you can try and get advantage in the laning phase. Same with Jhin as well. But it's just when you get to the team fights and when you get to the mid and late game, it is very, very hard to carry. And Ash just doesn't do a lot of damage. Very CC related champion that kind of relies on her team to carry and not herself, if that makes sense. Now, moving on to the support tier list. As I take another sip of my drink. Support tier list, right. A little swings and roundabouts here, a little few changes here and there. Janna and Nami, the top for me. Both these champions are really, really strong. Obviously, Ardent or Enchanter supports, as you will call them, are really, really strong right now because of all these crit AD carries that are in the meta. Enchanter supports do work really well with them. Not only do they provide, obviously, the ADCs with more damage, more utility, they also provide a lot of peel against all these great champions that are in the game at the moment in like top jungle, etc. Like Rengar, like Xing Shao, Camille, Lee Sin, all these champions. Janna and obviously Nami do really, really well into them. Obviously, Janna with her shielding, with her ultimate as well. She can poke quite a bit in laning phase, which could be a bit of a nuisance as well. But Janna is mainly there to peel for the AD carry and obviously protect the AD carry against all them assassins. Same with Nami as well. Nami's a very good champion in the laning phase. You can use the second ability to be able to kind of poke down the enemy champions and also heal yourself at the same time, so you won't actually lose a lot of health. Obviously, you have her ultimate, you have her third ability that can do obviously a lot of damage and give your AD a lot of damage as well. And you also have her bubble, which is really, really nice. Lulu as well, still really, really strong. Honestly, Lulu could probably move up into the S+ tier as well. But I put her just below Nami and Janna because sometimes you can punish Lulu because she kind of doesn't really have as much range as Janna and Nami. But I still feel like Lulu can be really, really strong, obviously, with all these support items. Senna has moved down for me in the support tier list. Again, because the meta at the moment is so crit heavy and it's all about protecting AD carries, Senna doesn't really do that, unfortunately. Senna doesn't really protect the AD carries as well as obviously Janna, Nami, and even Lulu as well. Leona is still quite strong. Obviously, she's been buffed and buffed and buffed every single patch. I think this is the first patch for like the past 5 or 6 patches that she actually wasn't buffed this time, so maybe she's in a pretty decent spot according to Riot, but I still think she is quite strong. Obviously, you want to play with aggressive AD carry in a bot lane, whether that be Lucian, Draven, anyone like that can kind of, you know, follow the Leona and be really, really aggressive, which is also important. Brom, still a great champion as well. Really good with Lucian, really good with these aggressive AD carries, and he's really good at peeling as well because of his passive, because of his ultimate, his shield, and being able to jump to allies as well to give them the extra bit of armor and magic resist. Now, Thresh, let's talk a little bit about Thresh. Now, Thresh, in my opinion, is really, really strong. Now, the only problem I find with Thresh is that people don't understand how to play him yet and how to utilize his kit, how to kind of play him correctly, if that makes sense. I still think he's really, really strong. I still think he's very, very good to play. He's one of the best in terms of solo carries, being able to solo carry in terms of supports. If you don't really want to rely on your AD carry and play these ardent supports, Thresh is probably the go-to in terms of being able to make them plays. And Thresh can actually do really well into these enchanter supports as well. If Thresh does land a hook, obviously he can get poked out a little bit, but if you do land a hook, you can follow it up, obviously with the flay and try and engage as well. Kind of similar to the way Leona works, but Leona kind of has to go all in to kind of make that engage, whereas Thresh can kind of throw his hook, stay back, and maybe use his flay to do a little bit. And obviously you can proc Aftershock quite easily with his flay as well. So Thresh, I still feel like is really, really good. Same with Rakan as well. Rakan is really, really good at playmaking. Obviously, Xayah with Rakan is really, really strong. Probably S+, I would say, Xayah Rakan at the moment. But Rakan by himself in the solo queue is probably S tier pick. Again, he can dash around all over the place. Is really, really mobile. Does have a lot of playmaking potential as well with his dash on his second ability and his ultimate. And then moving down to the A tier, again, all these A-tier champions are, it's so hard to kind of split them apart in my opinion, because all these champions, the same with S tier as well, are just really, really strong, except for Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is just, I'll leave you down there, buddy. So Alistar again can still be really, really strong if you are against these on the support. So if you do want to play aggressive, Alistar is a great pick. Can land a combo pretty easily on all these ardent supports. You just have to be careful in terms of the early game, getting poked out quite a bit. Lux is just a worse version at the moment of pretty much all the other ardent supports. She's kind of just kept falling down and down the list because people start to realize now that other ardent supports and other enchanter supports are just better than her at the moment. She kind of hasn't really been in the same place since her nerfs, which is kind of annoying. And it's kind of a little bit unfortunate because I do like playing Lux as support. Seraphine, again, does work really well as an enchanter support. The same with Sonar and the same with Lux as well. All of these three work quite well as enchanter supports. Obviously, Soraka got quite a nice buff last patch as well. Only problem with Soraka is that she kind of only relies on her heals, and that's about it. Whereas Seraphine and Sonar both have their ultimates, which can be game-changing. And then we have other things as well, like shielding, movement speed, damage as well. Whereas Soraka is healing and just healing, and that's it pretty much. But like I said, all these Seraphine, Sonar, and Soraka are just worse versions of Janna, Nami, and Lulu, in my opinion. They just don't offer as much, and they don't really have that pure potential and kind of protection potential as the other supports. Galio is still quite decent as well. Doesn't get played as much in the support role anymore, but still quite strong. And then Blitzcrank is just living down here in his Losum, having a nice time. But before I lose my voice, that's going to be in the tier list. My voice is getting worse and worse by the day, but we're still here. We're still grinding. We're still doing well. But yeah, that's my tier list. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed the tier list. Hopefully you guys agree with most of the things. I feel like it's pretty accurate and it's pretty fair, to be honest. Like I said, at the moment, especially with supports, there are a lot of supports and even a lot of AD carries that you can play that are really, really strong right now that you could definitely carry with. Obviously, duo in the bot lane is the most important thing. Play with a support that you know how to play with and that you kind of work well with, if that makes sense. Play what you're good at and you'll be able to climb. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like the video. Daily content will be coming back next week, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you all very soon. Peace out. Take care.